Hey guys, welcome back to the Boys Do Sports. Today we got our start and sit video. We're going to go through our starts and sits at every position and go through a couple defenses we like and a couple defenses we don't like. So, quick PSA, we do have an early Sunday game. Set your lineup Saturday night or get up early on Sunday because you don't want to be that guy who has a player that is not playing because you weren't up early enough for that game. So let's get started with our starts. I got a couple at quarterback because this position is just rough, and I like a lot of them this week. So Jordan Love, pretty obvious. He's currently the QB 14 on the season. Haven't really had a big breakout game. We're going to finally see the passing game come alive against the league's worst in fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. The Cowboys allow 28.1 fantasy points per game, so there's no reason he shouldn't shred this secondary and put up a great fantasy day. Next, we got quarterback Geno Smith. Dustin's not going to like this one, but for someone who's only 33% rostered, he is currently the QB 11 on the season with two 20-plus point games in the first 3 weeks. The Bears allow 24 fantasy points per game to quarterbacks, which is the third most. And this will be a good spot for him with a potential shootout this week. Apparently, I like a lot of Raiders this week. Another quarterback, Justin Fields. He should be playing, should go get through the concussion protocols. After balling out in week 1, he got concussed in week 2, did not play in week 3, and now he's down to 60% rostered for people that had to drop him, which is understandable. So he may be available to you guys if you need a quarterback after all these injuries. The Dolphins allow the second most fantasy points per game to quarterbacks, and Fields' rushing upside keeps him playable. So we'll move on to running back, another Raider, Ashton Jeanty. After 3 lackluster weeks, it is finally time for the Jeanty breakout. The Bears allow the 5th most fantasy points per game to running backs, and everyone in this game is going to eat, like I said with Geno. Don't sit him now. It is his time. Move on to wide receiver, another Raider, Jacoby Myers. So pairing him with Geno, going to be a good play. Throw Jeanty in there as well. The Bears allow the 3rd most fantasy points per game to wide receivers, and they allow the most fantasy points per game to slot wide receivers, which Jacoby Myers runs 60% of his routes from. The Bears are still without Jalen Johnson, and Jacoby Myers is averaging 76 receiving yards per game with Geno Smith. Tight end, we are not going to go with the Raiders tight end. We're going to go Hunter Henry because the Raiders tight end you must start. Brock Bowers is a must start. Hunter Henry, I wouldn't expect another 29-point performance week, but he's a good start against the Panthers. They allow the 6th most fantasy points per game to tight ends, and he is the leading receiver in all categories for the Patriots, like I said in my waiver wire video. We'll go on to our sits. Hurts my soul a little bit. Quarterback, Dak Prescott. He is down 2 starting linemen and CeeDee Lamb, and this is a very tough Packers defense, who only allows 12.1 fantasy points per game to quarterbacks, which is the 3rd lowest. We saw the game get out of hand last week, and the Cowboys threw Joe Milton out there. So the Packers are much better than the Bears, and I figure that this offense will be back soon. So just a couple weeks of this without CeeDee Lamb, without some of these linemen. Give it 3 or 4 weeks, give or take. Running back, we're sitting David Montgomery. The Browns allow the 3rd lowest fantasy points per game to running backs, and they held Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, and Chase Brown to a combined 48 rush attempts for 96 yards. That's 2 yards per carry, and Gibbs is out snapping and out touching Monty so far this season. I would sit him coming off of a massive running back 2 overall week. Wide receiver, T. Higgins. He's just wide receiver 56 so far this season, and the Broncos allow the 10th lowest fantasy points per game to wide receivers. There will not be enough volume without Joe Burrow to support Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. And in Jake Browning starts, some of them in 2023, one in 2025, Higgins averages 4.5 targets, 2.6 receptions, and 57 receiving yards. It's going to be tough to start him without Burrow. Tight end's tough because if you got him, you're pretty much starting him. But Dallas Goedert, his fantasy day last week was saved by a touchdown, which was his only catch of the week. The Buccaneers only allow 5.9 fantasy points per game to tight ends and have yet to allow a touchdown to a tight end. He will struggle to produce in this run-heavy offense for the rest of the year. Now, let's get into my favorite defenses. Obvious starters, the high-owned ones that are obvious starters. Vikings, Broncos, Texans, Bills, Lions, Packers, and Steelers. Some less owned teams to start. Guys that, had that 50% or below rostered. The Chargers, 49ers, Commanders, and Patriots. And then a couple highly owned defenses that I'm avoiding. The Ravens, I don't know how they're still 90% rostered. They have had 2 negative point weeks. I just don't see how you keep them in your lineup against the Chiefs. I know the Chiefs haven't been that great, but I'm not starting the Ravens defense for a little while. Eagles, and then the Chiefs. Eagles playing the Rams. That can get out of hand quick. And then the Chiefs playing the Ravens. The Ravens a really good offense. Chiefs defense has still been doing well, but I'm just not starting either of those defenses. So, yeah. That's all for my starts and sits, guys. Good luck this week with your fantasy matchups, and thanks for watching.